Figures, numbers, information. What does it mean? What can you do? Well, lucky we've got Pembo. Karl Pemberton is the Managing Director of Active Financial.
A lot of people don't realise they've had pensions, and we're coming across that quite a lot. If you've had quite a few jobs over the course of your career, you may have amassed lots of tiny little pensions, and if you don't tell them where you've moved to, whether it's an address or a new employer, you can find that you've got lots of tiny little pots in the background, which, once added all together, can actually make quite a bit of difference. So, don't be blasé and think you don't have any, because there is a chance you might have some. So searching for them, looking for them, is certainly one good option, and that's a case of writing to previous employers and asking whether you were ever a member. So that's definitely one option. Another option is people have the opportunity to top up your state pension. So we all hope to get a state pension at retirement. And again, a quick search on a government website, how much have I already got within my state pension? The formal name is a BR19. It'll actually give you an assessment of how many years you have got in terms of contributions towards a state pension. And you can top that up. So if you've got missing years, you can actually do that. There's actually a great article on one of our favourite financial people, Martin Lewis, on the Money Saving Expert site. He's got a great page which gives some stats around, you can top up your state pension if you have about £800, and it can give you about £5,000 worth of benefit, such as the lift and the boost that it gives you. So there are some simple, easy things to try and do. Don't just be blasé and do nothing. That's probably the worst thing. Don't bury your head in the sand. And ultimately, either seek advice or try and enrol within your company scheme if you're not already in it. They're my starting points.
I was going to say to you, coming to somebody like you and other businesses that do look into pensions, to get professional advice to where you possibly could put these pensions that you remember. I had 5 or 6 different ones, and just to pull them all together. Sometimes they'll say it's not worth doing it because of the penalties that you've got and you can incur. So leave that one there, put these ones together. You need a little bit of guidance on this. Would you ask people to reach out?
Yeah, and again, we've got to accept that seeing a financial advisor isn't for everybody. Some people are put off. Unfortunately, there are people in our industry that haven't done people any favours, and sometimes the cost to seek professional advice puts people off. So ultimately, there are options out there. There are internet websites that allow you to consider combining your pension pots, and there are some good ones out there. And similarly, there are some really good financial advisors out there who hold your hand and do a very fair and honest job. Like anything in life, I would say, do your research, pick a good one, and ultimately it should stand you in good stead.
There's a think tank, which is the ILC, which is suggesting by 2050, retirement age may need to go up to the age of 71. Have we got to disseminate the two between a private pension and state pension, and the two are not necessarily interlinked?
Yeah, the state pension is obviously what we're talking about here at 71. Private pensions tend to have a 10-year age difference sort of under that. So if state pension goes to 71, you would assume private pensions then would push to 61, just using what's happened historically. And I suppose the reason behind pushing the retirement age up, I suppose there's lots of political pros and cons for each, but ultimately we are living longer. We are healthier than we were 20, 30, 50 years ago when these state pensions were first introduced. So how long do you make that money stretch for? How long can the government keep paying us for it? Because if they paid at 65 as it was, and the average lifespan is 88 or, getting older, then, that money's got to last a hell of a lot longer time, which isn't sustainable. So we've either got to fund our own retirements, or we've got to put more into the taxation system for the government to fund our retirement, or we've got to push that age back a bit. There is no perfect answer, ultimately.
But there'll be a lot of people listening to us, Karl, who will be worried that when it comes to that time of retirement, whenever that may be, whether you choose to take it early or wait for the government retirement age, will I have enough money in the pot? Will I have enough money to carry on with my standard of living? And some of the stats I've seen from the PLSA a quite high water, and for a couple to have a comfortable retirement, they need a pension pot between £560,000 and £900,000. That's a scary amount of money. How would people find out what is a reasonable pension pot for their retirement?
I must admit, I've probably got a slightly different view than those PLSA figures. They are significant numbers, and the reality is most people in society aren't going to get anywhere near that. A similar report actually produced last year by Now Pensions, one of the big pensions providers, actually said you could have a minimum standard of living from a pension pot of about $250,000. Now, I know that's still a big amount of money, but it's half of what the PLSA are saying. The two big things that I would say are there's a big gender disparity. Females tend to retire with a pot worth only 70, and males tend to retire with a pot nearer to 200. So there's almost a 3 times difference there. That's a worrying stat for me. Certainly for the female population to prioritise their own retirement. But then there's also quite a significant regional disparity. A similar report by the PLSA actually said the average pension pot in the northeast is about 108,000. That's significantly lower than a lot of other parts in the country. So as a region, we are on track to struggle more than other areas. And I don't know if it's, we don't have the financial well-being to be able to afford to fund our own retirement. I don't know if it's just less of a priority in this area. I don't know if it's an education. I genuinely can't pinpoint one thing, but certainly the Northeast would appear to have a bigger challenge on its hands moving forward than anywhere else.
Is there a simple, basic model where you could go to, maybe it's like a sliding sort of chart or whatever, where you can put in what it would cost to live to when you want to retire to how much you would have to need in your pot, or is that too simplistic?
There are lots of websites out there that'll do rough analysis like that, but ultimately it's just a bit of maths and somebody's perfect idea. Now, I'll give you my personal idea. This is not advice. I'll get that little caveat in there. As a rough rule of thumb, but ultimately pensions have evolved over the last 5-10 years. As a rough rule of thumb, if you had your own pension pot, this is not including those government type of pension schemes, this is not including your state type of pension scheme, these are ones that you've probably amassed through your working life. On average, they could produce about 5% a year as an income, and that money should last you throughout your life, and that money would still be there to hand on to future generations. Now, you can take that in whichever way you want. If that pot's worth 100,000, that'll give you 5,000 a year. It's not a lot. If it's 200,000, it'll give you 10,000 a year, which again doesn't sound a lot. Now, there's nothing stopping you in today's world taking more than 5%. You could take 10% out at 20,000, but you're running the risk of that pot running out quite quick. And that's the danger. It's trying to balance what income you want in retirement versus how long you think it's going to need to last for. That's the fine balancing act a lot of people will have to juggle when it comes to the compromises of retirement.
Is there any steadfast rules that you would sort of say people need to be looking at when it comes to pensions?
Yeah, and again, it's very, very simplistic because everybody's circumstances are different, so everyone will have an argument why they would and wouldn't do this. But if you can contribute towards your workplace pension scheme, things like auto-enrolment is quite well established now. If you get offered the chance to be part of your work scheme, please do your damnedest to be part of it. Opting out is only going to really hurt you in future years. So that's number one. Number two is if you've had multiple employers in the past, please do some checking as to whether you've got any old dormant schemes lying in the background, because they could, if suitable, be amalgamated into a simple scheme which is a lot healthier or can be a lot healthier for you. Number three is check on the government website and check whether you've amassed enough years within the government pension scheme, because again, the last thing you want to do is get to that retirement age and realise you've not contributed enough and you could put money in. There's a window of opportunity until April 25 to do some backdated contributions, so that's something worth considering definitely. I suppose ultimately, don't bury your head in the sand trying to be proactive, trying to keep one eye on retirement. Even if it's 20, 30 years in the future, the earlier you can plan for it, the cheaper it's ultimately going to be. The later you leave it to take action, it's going to cost you a hell of a lot more. And that's unfortunately, the reality of the situation.
And just finally, if anybody that's listening is living on state benefit and maybe can't work, when it comes to retirement age, will their benefits still work right up until the government retirement age comes in and then they will receive state pension?
Potentially, yeah. The difficulty is checking what state pension you've got. Again, the normal rules are you qualify for a full state pension if you've got 35 qualifying years. Now, there's lots of reasons why some people don't have 35 qualifying years, and if you haven't worked or you haven't had certain pension benefits or earned income across that time, why you wouldn't amass it. So there is a danger that if, unfortunately, you have been on benefits throughout a period of your life, there may be some significant gaps. So checking on that government website, or even just a Google search for how much of government pension, state pension will I get, and even the code BR, B for Bravo, R for Romeo 1919, should allow you to search what you've got banked already.
You are an oracle, my friend, and I think you've simplified it all for a lot of people. Look, Karl, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
No worries, Gary. Thank you.